If I were to ask you a question about a world record, what would your immediate thought be? Would you think about something like the Olympics and an athlete like Usain Bolt, who set a world record with 9.58 seconds during the 100-meter dash? Or would you think about something else? This, I think, is a normal assumption to make if you were ever asked such a question. After all, it's a normal assumption to make, an easy association to make when you hear the words world record spoken to you. Most of the famous world records that are known across the world were set in an athletic environment, such as the Olympics, and this is where most people generalize a world record achievement. But what about a world record that was set in an online world, such as a person completing something for the first time that no one else had done before? Someone like Oken Kea, a man from Australia who set the longest consecutive record for playing an online video game at 135 hours on Call of Duty Black Ops 2 back in November of 2012. A world record that was set almost 6 years ago to this day and has yet to be beaten by anyone else. Is this a firm achievement as impressive as Usain Bolt's, or would you consider one or the other lesser in comparison in some way? Would your perspective shift if you were to compare one or the other? Is the world record set in a video game, or for a video game, diminished in some way simply because it was set in cyberspace, instead of one that was set in reality? If we take a look back through the history of RuneScape, from its days as a classic version from 2001, all the way through to the current iteration of Oldschool Runescape and RuneScape 3, how many world records do you think have been set in that near 17-year history? Jagex has celebrated several world records for this game, one of which was set for Oldschool Runescape itself when they became the first ever game developer in the world to release an old school version of an MMORPG. That in itself, the creation of Oldschool Runescape, was a world record simply on its own. Is that impressive, do you think? And what about players who have set their own world records? There perhaps hasn't been a more impressive player in RuneScape history than the legendary Zazima, who became the first ever player to achieve 99 Slayer in RuneScape history on July 9th, 2005. In that year, he also became the first player in the game's history to achieve the LEN max total level of 1980 on the same day that he achieved 99 Slayer, or when he became the first ever player to achieve the LEN next max total level of 2079, a few months later on October 4th, 2005. These are world records that were set 13 years ago during the game's infancy. They are records that will never be broken. Zezima will always be the first player to set these world records, among others that are too many to list in this video. Suffice to say, the man deserves his cult-like status in our community despite it being well over a decade since he played competitively in-game, and will always be remembered for what he accomplished during his time in the world of Gilmore. The concept of setting a world record in RuneScape has been something on my mind for the past month. In particular, I was reminded of an episode of the Animatrix called World Record that I have watched several times over the course of this past month, and is the reason behind the Matrix theme of this episode of Max. The overarching goal of the series, the end point to which you and I are on a journey together, is to become the first ever player to achieve a Maxscape across all the game modes of Oldschool Runescape. Unlike the character in the Animatrix, however, this goal isn't a sprint but more akin to a marathon. It is a future world record that will be set over many years, to be achieved and showcased in a very distant future of Maxed. However, along the way to that ultimate goal, there will be more world records that will be set. Records that will be unique due to the comparison between each game modes and how they were achieved. For example, I could become the first player to achieve 99 in Oldschool Runescape and World 45 Deadman mode, an accomplishment that is yet to be done by any other player. However, the distinction of being the first player to achieve a Maxscape in either version of the game belongs to Jebrin, who was the first player to max on the normal members version of Oldschool Runescape, and Iron Higer, who achieved a Maxscape on Deadman mode. These are world records due to their distinction and prestige of being the first ever players to accomplish this before anyone else. The comparison between being the first player to achieve 99 in 2 or more versions of the game is an uncommon occurrence in the history of RuneScape. Whilst I still have the time to accomplish being the first person to achieve a Maxscape in Old School and Deadman, I cannot do the same for Old School and Hardcore Iron Man. A woman by the name of Mickey was the first person to do this in RuneScape, when she maxed her first account on August 30th, 2015, and then 3 years later accomplished a Maxscape on a Hardcore Iron Woman on June 16th, 2018. She would always be the first and currently the only person in the world to own a RuneScape account with 99 ore in these particular versions of the game, a world record that she set for herself 2 months ago today. In all these world records that were set in RuneScape are all impressive and all have a common theme of being unique to the singular individual who accomplished them. In particular, I feel enamored by the idea of being the only person to achieve a maxscape in 2 separate modes, like Mickey has done. It must be a nice feeling that I feel I can relate to, because at this current time, I am the only person in the world to have achieved a record as well. On September 13, 2018, I achieved 99 agility on my Oldschool Runescape account with Zayla, an achievement that by itself is impressive to most players who find the skill difficult to train due to the reputation that comes with it, but an achievement that becomes more unique and improved when you compare it to the 99 agility that I had beforehand on World 45 Deadman mode, which has the distinction of being the first 99 that I accomplished since Oldschool Runescape came out in February of 2013, also due to the fact that I am the first ever person in RuneScape to have achieved 99 agility on both of these versions of the game. Having 99 agility on the Zayla in 2 separate game modes was a fortunate accident of mine. When I played Deadman mode back when it was new in October of 2015, I did not plan to become the first person to get 99 agility 3 years later on the main game and set a unique world record that cannot be broken. Just as it is for other players or people on this list, who each set a world record of being the first to accomplish a certain level or cape first on their respective accounts, my record could never be broken either. I would always be the first player to have achieved 99 agility on either game mode in RuneScape, an agility achievement that not even Jebram himself can claim to have made despite recording over 1 billion experience in the skill across several accounts. Each to their own, as they say. As I progress each of my accounts and achieve different 99s across all of them, I will have created my own unique records along the way based on the different matchups and comparisons that can be made, such as being the first player to get 99 agility on Oldschool and Deadman. But as the current Deadman mode 2018 Summon Tournament comes to an end later on today and the new winter season will begin, there is a particular world record that I would like to try and accomplish over the course of the next month before the season ends. You see, I don't want my world record for agility to be my last for this year. I want to become the first player to achieve 99 ore in a seasonal version of Deadman mode. By achieving 99 ore this season, I will set a greater world record than the one I set 2 days ago, due to the complexity and the difficulty of the task at hand. I have a single month, a small window of time, to reach 13 million experience in each skill on the version of a game, where if you die you will lose most of your bank, where you can lose experience if your character was gold, and a game mode where very quickly the player base dwindles down to a point where resources for skinning become finite and much difficult to gain. There will be many people, perhaps all of you, who will look at this target and think that it is impossible. There isn't enough time, or if you die at a certain point it becomes too much to recover in time, or there won't be enough resources in the game for me to use or even get hold of before the month ends. These are things that I've considered as I toyed with the idea, but my motivation to continue playing old school is to now try and accomplish something that has never been seen before, and something that may never be achieved again. I draw inspiration from the Animatrix episode that this particular episode of Max was derived from. As Dan runs the 100 meter dash to break the established world record to accomplish a time that should be impossible, I too want to run the gauntlet of time in the most challenging game mode in RuneScape and see what I can accomplish there. Dan dared to dream a world record of 8.72 seconds, so perhaps I can dream for a while too and see where it takes me.